the demon-possessed boy. This is kind of the second section. So you got the first section of seeing what his disciples are doing with the knowledge. They're moving into the demon-possessed boy. When they returned to the other disciples, they saw a large crowd standing around them, and some teachers of religious law were arguing with them. When the crowd saw Jesus, they were overwhelmed with awe, and they ran to greet him. What is all this arguing about? Jesus asked. So essentially, it's the same picture of what happened when Moses came down out of the mountain. Folks were running around, jumping around the golden calf. Right? So Moses is out of the picture for a second. He left Aaron in charge, take care of everything while I'm up here talking to God. He comes down, all kinds of craziness is happening. Well, we got kind of this, that's kind of what's happening. There's some craziness going on. And we're supposed to look at this and remember the golden calf thing. Hey, there's a lot of parallels. So they can't physically see Jesus. What's happened? Well, I'll tell you one thing that's happened is the disciples are on the losing end of a battle. The teachers of the law have got them. And we'll see that right here. One of the men in the crowd. See, it's not a disciple that goes, "Oh, Jesus, you're back." Let me tell you, it's one of the guys in the crowd. He says, one of the men in the crowd spoke up and said, "Teacher, I brought my son so that you could heal him. He is possessed by an evil spirit that won't let him talk. And whenever this spirit seizes him, it throws him violently to the ground. Then he foams at the mouth and grinds his teeth and becomes rigid. So I asked your disciples to cast out the evil spirit, but they couldn't do it." By the way, that's a clue to one of the problems. They couldn't do it. Jesus said to them, "You faithless people, how long must I be with you? How long must I put up with you? Bring the boy to me." Boy, is that sad. You faithless people.
He gets down once in a while.
Yeah. God disciplines who he loves, right? Maybe that's faithless people. Wait, we're your church. We're hanging out here. We're doing everything right? We're listening. We had Bible study going while you were up on the mountain. We were still standing out here doing something. Something wasn't happening right. Because here's the deal. Christ had given him the ability and the authority to drive out demons. But they're not doing it here. Somehow, while they had the right foundation when he went up the hill, they lost it. They lost sight of the right thing. I told you that hint was right here. They couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. It wasn't in their strength that they could drive the demon out. I'll just hang that out there. We'll come back to it. Verse 20, so they brought the boy. But when the evil spirit saw Jesus, it threw the child into a violent convulsion, and he fell to the ground, writhing. I'm going to read the words like they're here. Writhing and foaming at the mouth. How long has this been happening? Jesus asked the boy's father. He replied, since he was a little boy. The spirit often throws him into the fire or into water trying to kill him. Have mercy on us and help us if you can. If it's in your strength. What do you mean, if I can? Jesus asked. Anything is possible if a person believes. The father instantly cried out, I do believe, but help me overcome my unbelief. I love the fact that Jesus seizes on his doubt and pushes the man in a crisis of faith. Folks, we don't like to be in crisis of faith. Whether it's as a church or as an individual believer, no matter what, we don't want to be in a crisis of faith. But guess what? The only place we see our faith grow is when we're in a crisis of faith. I look at it and I say, you know what he's doing is he's failing, but he's failing in a good way. Right? He recognizes his doubt and goes, I've got to lean closer. Okay, if you're the man, help me in my doubt. I I love that prayer. I go to this verse or its cousins in the other Gospels all the time when people come to me and say, I just don't know. Sometimes I doubt. Well, good. You're on the growth edge of faith then. Doubting's not a bad thing. Figuring that's the end of faith, that is a bad thing. Doubting means that you're right there on the hard part of your growth edge. Lean in on God and see what happens. When Jesus saw the crowd of onlookers throwing, he rebuked the evil spirit. Listen, you spirit that makes this boy unable to hear and speak. He said, I command you to come out of the child and never enter him again. And the spirits screamed and threw the boy in another violent convulsion and left him. The boy appeared to be dead. A murmur ran through the crowd and people said, he's dead. But Jesus took him by the hand and helped him to his feet, and he stood up. Powerful moment. And by the way, we're supposed to see a picture also of what? Death, resurrection, the new life, that sort of thing. It's a picture that's happening. It's foreshadowing something big, right? Something that's going to be coming. Afterward, when Jesus was alone in the house with his disciples, they asked him, why could we not cast out that evil spirit? Jesus replied, this kind can be cast out only by prayer. In some places there's a story and it says prayer and fasting, right? You might maybe have seen prayer and fasting. Let me tell you, let's not focus on whether or not it's prayer and fasting, because you know what? Some of that is us falling into the same trap that the disciples had. The disciples had thought the power was within them. They looked at casting out the demon as if it was going to be some sort of incantation, some sort of, if I do this step or this step, if I read this certain thing, then this certain thing will happen. In other words, the power is in me. Remember, when the guy said they failed, he said the disciples weren't able to do it because it was all about the disciples. That was their problem. Jesus said this thing only comes with prayer. Because who's the primary mover in prayer? Yes?
God.
God. Very good. No, guys, it's not about you. You can't drive the spirit out. You're right, you don't have the strength to. Church, you don't have the strength to. It's not in you physically. That's why you go to Him. The simple answer He gave here reveals a huge problem that was happening within the disciples. The disciples kept thinking it was about them. It was about their position. It was about what they were doing. Because they were a disciple of Jesus, because of their relationship to Jesus in the sense of their organizational relationship to Jesus, I should be able to do this. I'm a pastor. I get to do this. Listen, it's not because you're a pastor. He called me a disciple, so because he called me a disciple, I have this ability. No, if you have the ability, you have the ability because it's Jesus' ability, it's not your ability. Church, if we're impacting the community, we're not impacting the community or failing to impact the community, not because we don't have the ability individually to do it, because we don't have the ability to individually do it. It's because we're not leaning on Christ and saying, Christ, He is the prime mover. Always is the prime mover. One thing that this church has done very well is continue to go to prayer. Guess what we need to do? Continue to go to prayer. It's always where it's at.